Good afternoon, and welcome to our Plant Engineering webcast, Energy Management Strategies for Manufacturing. Thanks for joining us today. I'm your moderator, Bob Vavra, and I'm happy to join you today on behalf of Plant Engineering. We're really pleased to have two gentlemen from the Consortium for Energy Efficiency joining us today, presenting some information and insight on this topic of energy management, and we're pleased that they've taken the time to be with us this afternoon. Ted Jones is the Principal Program Manager at the Consortium for Energy Efficiency, where he oversees a number of the national energy efficiency initiatives that support local program administrator objectives for the industrial sector. These initiatives address energy savings in electric motors and motor-driven equipment, strategic energy management, and municipal water treatment. He also manages the committee of thought leaders focused on emerging industrial programs such as combined heat and power and industrial refrigeration. Ted has more than 25 years of experience in energy efficiency and sustainability fields. He holds a master's degree in science, technology, and public policy from George Washington University and a business degree from Carnegie Mellon. He's joined by Craig Massey, a program associate at CEE. Craig manages a variety of initiative resources across the residential and commercial sectors, supports event coordination, and is a co-author of the CEE Annual Industry Report. Prior to joining CEE, Craig was an associate analyst at the Nielsen Company, delivering market insights to Procter & Gamble. He joined CEE in 2014 and has a bachelor's degree in economics from Elon University. Craig, Ted, thank you for joining us here this afternoon. And Ted, good afternoon and welcome to our presentation. I understand you're starting us off.
I certainly am. Thank you, Bob. Craig and I are pleased to be here with you today and certainly want to thank Plant Engineering Magazine for inviting us to spend some time with you. As Bob kindly introduced, my responsibility at the Consortium for Energy Efficiency is the development of industrial energy efficiency opportunities for ratepayer programs at the national level. During my time with you today, I'd like to address three basic topics. Basically, what is the Consortium for Energy Efficiency, or CEE? We'd like to present you with some findings from some research that CEE has conducted under the Annual Industry Report for 2015, where we'll be looking at some major trends among energy efficiency programs, focusing specifically on the industrial sector. And then wrapping up with a little bit of how CEE is focused in the industrial sector and how we attempt to provide value to our members in that sector. A quick overview on CEE. CEE is a nonprofit organization that spans across the United States and Canada, bringing together providers of electric and gas energy efficiency programs. Those program administrators work together through CEE to accelerate their own efforts to develop and deploy energy efficiency program offerings. Those programs support products and services that many of you use every day, and we're looking to enhance the public benefit of those programs. CEE brings together about 100 program administrators serving most of the United States and Canada, specifically 45 states and 7 provinces. As I mentioned, CEE is a nonprofit, member-driven organization, and our board of directors is drawn from our member organizations. I wanted to spend a few minutes taking a more granular or grassroots look at the Consortium for Energy Efficiency and really start with its members. And as you take a closer look at this list of over 100 program administrators, I hope that you see perhaps specific names of electricity or natural gas providers that look familiar to you, whether it's Pacific Gas and Electric, Baltimore Gas and Electric, or National Grid. This is, as I said, a very granular view, and these aren't just CEE members. This really is the Consortium for Energy Efficiency. These program administrators from across the U.S. and Canada are the ones who came together to create CEE in the first place. They organized themselves in 1991. They created a nonprofit organization to serve their interests and hired staff. Craig and I work for them. These organizations came together for a couple of different reasons. Just as your local utility is obligated to provide electricity or natural gas to your plant or office, they're also, in many instances, obligated to help you save that very same energy, which when you think about it is a pretty atypical business model. They all share a mandate to save energy. Each is mandated by either their state or their state regulator, which could be a public utility commission or a public service commission, to achieve lasting energy efficiency benefits for their customers. Each is charged to collect ratepayer funds, design energy efficiency programs for their customers, and implement those programs either directly or through their contractors, and report back the results to their regulators on the costs and benefits of those program investments. For each program administrator, there are policies and regulations in place to ensure public benefit for customers, for the grid, and for society. They also share a common interest in cost-effective energy savings that can be attributed to specific measures above and beyond federal minimum standards and state standards. They need credible definitions for program-supported measures and data that demonstrates their benefits to regulators. They also run into the same market barriers when it comes to advancing energy efficiency within their service territories. They struggle to raise customer awareness and increase the availability of more efficient products and services. Some of these utilities are very large, like Southern California Edison or National Grid, or even the whole state of New York. But what they found is even the size of their individual programs isn't enough to shift a whole market. But by working together, they can very well have an influence on the availability of energy-efficient products and the cost of those products over time. As I said, the one thing they don't share in common is a common service territory or organizational type. As I said, some are regional, some are by state, and some are constrained to a specific service territory, which was one of the driving forces that brought them together at CEE. By the way, the other thing that I wanted to mention is that these aren't even all the CEE members. We also include national labs and other nonprofits that are focused on energy efficiency. As I said, it's a very granular view, but I think it's an important one to understand the organization and where the research is coming from that Craig will be sharing. So by working together, bringing together over 100 programs from across the United States and Canada, these administrators are able to share results and compare how each of their programs are doing, but also have the opportunity to work together and provide a binational signal on what the program industry is interested in terms of energy efficiency. So they can reach and support a binational market, accelerate uptake of energy-efficient products, and help achieve lasting public benefit in a way they can't do individually. The way CEE is organized, and I promise I won't get too much into the weeds on this, but we organize our committees of CEE members by sector. So we look at specific opportunities for national impact within the residential, commercial, and industrial sector. I'll talk a little bit more about the industrial work later in this presentation. We also look at cross-cutting opportunities that affect all CEE members and help enhance their program impacts. One of these areas is in evaluation, measurement, and verification, which often involves conducting research, like the results you'll be hearing about today. Other cross-cutting areas are behavior change, like how can you attribute savings from operation and maintenance practices within your building or within your plant. There are new program designs that the members often discuss. We're looking at new industrial Internet of Things type technology through connected equipment and process equipment, as well as emerging technology. So that's a quick overview of the Consortium for Energy Efficiency. Now I'd like to hand it off to my colleague, Craig Massey, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the annual industry report. Craig?
Thanks, Ted. So my name is Craig Massey, and I'm a program associate on the Evaluation, Research, and Behavior team here at CEE. Today I'll be giving a quick overview of the CEE Annual Industry Report, which is one of the most comprehensive surveys of energy efficiency program budgets, expenditures, and savings available. If you still like to dig in further after this presentation, the full 2015 report, as well as past reports, are available free of charge on the CE website at the link listed on this slide. After my portion of the presentation, Ted will explain more about how you can get involved or make use of these types of programs and resources in your own facilities. So the latest report was released on March 18th, and it represents the 10th consecutive CE Annual Industry Report. Data collection for this report was undertaken in collaboration with the American Gas Association, or AGA. One of CE's key objectives with this report is to collect and maintain efficiency program industry information for the purpose of attempting to trend, over time, the state of the demand-side management, or DSM industry. So the DSM industry encompasses both energy efficiency programs, which encourage and incentivize market adoption of more efficient technologies and processes, and demand response programs, which involve managing grid capacity during peak periods, typically through an adjusted pricing structure. CE collects current year budgets and past year expenditures and energy savings for DSM programs across all U.S. states and Canadian provinces. Data is collected through an annual online survey of both natural gas and electric programs, and all the responses are then aggregated and displayed in various contexts throughout the report. While the survey and data collection process has been expanded and refined over the last 10 years of reporting, the core goal of providing a high-level overview of trends in program budgets, expenditures, and savings has remained the same. So to provide a bit more context regarding the organizations we survey, while all of the respondents are energy efficiency or demand response program administrators, this group can include investor-owned utilities, state and provincial administrators, regional entities, public power entities, and some rural or municipal utilities, all included in order to provide as comprehensive a data set as possible and to appropriately represent the industry's breadth. Also, focus in past years has been to collect budgets, expenditures, and savings pertaining to only programs funded by ratepayer dollars. So for the last 3 years, the survey has additionally collected information about programs funded through non-ratepayer sources. This includes the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, capacity market revenues, and other sources such as grant funding or pilot investments. However, ratepayer funding continues to represent the largest single source of money that states use or direct to be used for energy efficiency programs. As I noted briefly, the data collection process for this report is undertaken in collaboration with the American Gas Association. CE collects all of the electric program information as well as gas program information from CE members, while AGA collects the majority of the gas program information. The survey was fielded in June for electric programs, July for gas programs, and data collection continued through the fall of 2015. And to note, at most, the data the CE reports can be disaggregated to the state level, as CE must honor agreements that were made to individual program administrators regarding the disclosure of their information. In addition to providing industry or countrywide totals, our survey process also aims to capture information pertaining to specific types of programs, which are differentiated based on program structure. So whether they're a custom or prescriptive program, the type of measure they use, the end use, and the target economic sector. Survey respondents self-select these categories, and although CE follows up with respondents regarding significant changes in their data or their program structure from year to year, the primary responsibility for ensuring the programs are categorized appropriately lies with the respondents themselves. That said, though, CE worked with Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory in California, as well as various industry stakeholders and CE members, to refine a typology of program categories to promote accurate categorization, which CE has incorporated into the survey since 2013. The types of programs you see listed on this slide are just the high-level sector categories, and each is further broken down into more specific programs within the report itself. So for commercial and industrial programs specifically, program categories include both custom and prescriptive measures, including custom energy audits, custom refrigerated warehouses, data centers, new construction, motors, agriculture, and others. Appendix A in the report itself is a complete list of these program types and definitions, and in general, commercial and industrial efficiency programs tend to focus on comprehensive and customized offerings due to the significant variability from facility to facility. So now that I've provided some context, let's start to dig into the data from 2015 specifically, which was released earlier this year. So in 2015, we incorporated data for 361 utility and non-utility program administrator respondents. We're confident that this pool represents the critical mass of program administrators in the industry. However, for the most part, survey respondents do not include very small municipal power providers or co-ops, so the totals are a bit conservative. Due to the nature of the survey process and reporting program cycles, data refers to expenditures and savings from the 2014 calendar year and budgets from the 2015 calendar year. Overall, results show continued program industry growth, as total U.S. and Canadian program expenditures increased 9% from 2013 to 2014, both for all respondents and only those that responded in both years. 2014 expenditures totaled nearly $8.7 billion, and that represents a 34% increase over the last 5 years. The following slides will visualize findings from the latest report, providing insight into various industry trends. However, as this information is obtained through a voluntary survey and the responding organizations may change from year to year, I do want to recommend caution in comparing the data or inferring trends beyond those I'll discuss here, or those included in the report itself, particularly at the state or provincial level. The full report also contains additional data and detail beyond what is included in this presentation, including detailed spending breakdowns by program type, for electric programs specifically, as well as state and provincial data tables. And that information is all also publicly available at ce1.org using the link I provided earlier. So first, let's take a look at budgets. So here we see a comparison of total U.S. and Canadian gas and electric budgets over time. Budget information is only shown at a high level in the report, particularly as budget figures are still subject to change and tend to be more political. In contrast, expenditures and savings represent committed funds and impacts, and as such are a better indication of the state of the program industry. Budget figures still provide helpful insight, though. And here it is easy to see that electric programs, which are shown in yellow, represent a much larger proportion of the overall program industry than gas programs, which are shown in blue. I also want to address the changing trends seen here with the 2015 data. As you can see in the chart, survey results indicate an overall decrease in 2015 gas and electric DSM budgets, though we did some additional analysis and revealed that this change was driven by a few large program administrators, so it's not necessarily indicative of an overall industry trend. With that said, looking to expenditures and savings will always provide a more accurate picture of the industry. So next year's report, which will look at 2015 expenditures and impacts, will allow us to verify this trend. So now, taking a look at expenditures, these are the best indication of investment in the efficiency program industry. So this graph is breaking down annual U.S. electric DSM expenditures by program category. So this visualizes the continued growth of the U.S. electric energy efficiency programs overall. It was 11% growth from 2013 to 2014. And it also shows that commercial and industrial energy efficiency spending is consistently the largest share of that. Seen here in bright red, that category represents approximately 40% of total U.S. electric DSM spend in 2014. In terms of the types of activities that this spend typically goes towards, over 50% of the 2014 total expenditures were allocated towards customer rebates and incentives, just over 20% to marketing administration, 2% to research and evaluation, and approximately 20% to other costs. On this graph and others I've included in the presentation, you can see demand response spending as well, which is shown here in bright yellow. This can help put energy efficiency and demand response in perspective relative to each other, as energy efficiency, which encompasses all the categories except demand response, consistently represents a much larger allocation of expenditures. So next, here we see Canadian electric DSM expenditures. Canadian expenditures show a decrease in 2014. This is largely due to the ongoing energy surplus in many regions throughout Canada and the significant fluctuations in the exchange rate between the U.S. and Canadian dollars over the course of this last year. To note, as with the U.S., commercial and industrial programs typically represent the largest DSM expenditures category. Here it's rivaled only by those expenditures that program administrators did not break out into separate categories. That's seen in green at the bottom of each bar. So regarding this not broken out spend, the rise and fall of this category year to year is largely due to one particularly large program administrator that was able to respond with that in 2010 and 2013, but not in 2011, 2012, or 2014. However, their spending breakdown in the years when they were able to respond reinforces our understanding that commercial and industrial spending is consistently the largest spending category for Canadian electric programs as well. So to dig a bit deeper into these sector categories, the report also lists individual program types by total expenditures, and shown here are the top 10 U.S. electric program types. So Appendix B of the report itself includes the full U.S. electric table, as well as a table for Canadian electric programs, though gas programs are not broken out to this level of detail. But here we see that individual program spends follow a similar trend to the aggregated data, with commercial and industrial programs representing some of the most extensively funded programs of any type. And those are highlighted in yellow here. So the difference between these programs, so mixed offerings, other, and custom programs, are that mixed offerings typically incorporate a variety of offerings that aren't adequately captured in the specific categories. Other includes programs that aren't accurately captured by any of the other program types, and custom programs may incorporate multiple types of offerings, but are primarily distinguished by their comprehensive approach to efficiency solutions at a particular site or facility. And prescriptive indicates a specific offering, such as a pump replacement, that couldn't be bucketed into any of the other prescriptive categories. So now we're moving on to natural gas. So for U.S. natural gas efficiency programs, we see a different breakdown in spend by sector, as residential program expenditures tend to represent the largest share of overall expenditures. And they were 39% in 2014, though this is 3% lower than they were in 2013. Most of the overall growth here is the result of an increase in spending on low-income programs, while commercial and industrial programs have remained relatively stable over time. Overall, 53% of U.S. natural gas program expenditures go towards customer incentives, 41% towards administration, marketing, and other implementation costs. The remaining 6% to evaluation, measurement, and verification, or other costs. In terms of Canadian natural gas efficiency programs, commercial and industrial programs represent the highest share of overall expenditures, consistently representing over 40% of the total for the last 4 years. With regards to what this money goes towards, 61% is allocated to customer incentives, 26% to administration, marketing, or other implementation costs, 2% to measurement and evaluation, and 11% to other costs. So one thing that I haven't addressed yet is where exactly are these programs located and how is the spending distributed regionally. So here we have a breakdown of expenditures by state and province, and you can see that the states with the largest programs are in the northwest and northeast of the United States. California has long been a state dedicated to energy efficiency, and it remains one of the states with the highest DSM program expenditures overall. On the CE website, at the link provided earlier, there are also supplementary data tables with more detail regarding state breakdowns of this information. So I encourage you to look there if you'd like a more nuanced look at your region specifically. And finally, a look at the impacts. So out of all of the spending shown in the previous slides, how much energy is saved and where is it being saved? The savings here are gross incremental savings, which encompasses all energy savings in a given year, whether from a new program or an existing program savings that occurred in the 2014 calendar year. So overall, ratepayer-funded programs are estimated to have saved the equivalent of 21.4 million metric tons of avoided CO2 emissions in 2014. In terms of fuels, this represents 27,520 gigawatt hours of electricity and 459 million therms of natural gas. The majority of these savings came from the U.S., which represented 25,850 gigawatt hours and 371 million therms, while Canada represented 1,670 gigawatt hours and 87 million therms. 51% of the overall electric savings were attributed to the commercial and industrial or individual commercial and industrial programs. And 49% of the gas savings were attributed to commercial and industrial. So this data in particular represents ratepayer-funded programs only, which is the majority of overall spending, though the report does include total savings for programs from all funding sources as well. So lastly, I do want to briefly discuss demand response programs. For multiple years, demand response programs have been included in the information collected on budgets and expenditures. And in the 2015 report, the effort was expanded to include demand response savings as well. So demand response programs are generally split into two types. There's incentive-based, which address load control through a contractual agreement with the customer, such as rebates, rate discounts, or bill credits. While there are also time-based programs, which invite customers to participate and then get notified when the utility needs to reduce load during system peaks. They typically offer graduated pricing schemes in exchange for this reduction. As DR savings represent a means of capacity management during peak periods, they're typically categorized by individual events, and we tend to look at those events seasonally. And in the chart here, you can see regional savings broken down by the type of peak. Demand response is further investigated within Appendix C of the report, so I encourage you to look to the report itself if you'd like to learn a bit more about these types of programs. So that's it about my part in the presentation, the focus on the CE Annual Industry Report specifically. So now I'm going to turn it back over to my colleague, Ted, to discuss CE's ongoing work relative to the industrial sector.
Thank you, Craig. I'd just like to spend a moment talking a little bit about where some of those funds go and some of those budget dollars go in a particular sector that might be of interest to those of you who work in industrial plants or where you have process energy use. If you look at any one utility or program administrator, there may be a variety of measures that are supported through their energy efficiency programs. They can be providing technical assistance for audits or engineering studies. You could have a premium efficiency product or widget that is available for incentives. There may be assistance with what Craig referred to as custom projects, or looking at a more detailed project that requires hiring an engineer or doing an engineering assessment of what the incremental savings are from a project. When those program administrators come together, they align very quickly in terms of areas of interest. Given all those dollars spent on electricity savings, there's a natural interest, particularly for the commercial industrial sector, in electric motors. They're interested in what those motors are driving, whether they're compressed air or pumps. There's interest in an alignment of interest in building awareness and doing customer outreach. There's interest in new savings opportunities through strategic energy management that isn't really related or focused on a product or on a project per se, but on how the customer manages energy overall. On the gas side, there's certainly interest in steam systems, boilers and steam systems, and on the municipal side, and which is also an electricity and gas savings area, is municipal water and wastewater treatment facilities. So each of those areas are areas that we focus on at CEE. I thought I would just walk through a couple examples so you can get an idea of what programs are kind of working on together and what you might be seeing in your home service territory. First, I wanted to touch on strategic energy management. Many of you may be familiar with an ISO standard in this area, ISO 50001. And at CEE, efficiency program administrators have come together to identify where they can support energy management for their commercial and industrial customers. And they have done that by defining some minimum elements of energy management. And I think this represents a major trend that we're seeing in program support in the industrial area, kind of shifting from products and projects to operations and maintenance savings. Where you're really looking, instead of at specific projects, helping customers achieve energy-saving goals that they may have been established through their corporate office or through a federal government program. Another key aspect of this is looking at multi-year project opportunities and not being constrained by a one-year time horizon, but working with industrial customers over many years. The next area that we're focusing on is in the motors and motor systems area. You may have noticed that over the years, certainly over my career, the electric motors have been subject to regulation through federal minimum standards, several rounds now. And with each round of federal standards, energy efficiency programs are looking for a new definition of what's above and beyond federal minimum standards. and we're certainly in that process right now, looking at technologies such as permanent magnet motors or synchronous motors that achieve performance above current federal minimum programs. That's something that I know some programs currently support, and it's something that we're looking at as an area of opportunity for broader support. Another area is in compressed air and pumps. There are current rulemakings in place through the Department of Energy's Office of Codes and Standards, looking at new federal minimum standards for compressors and for pumps, also fans and blowers. So we're keeping an eye on that and seeing if there's an opportunity for differentiating high-performance products in those areas as well. I mentioned customer outreach and education. This is an area that was identified about 15 years ago at CEE, and we do support a campaign called Motor Decisions Matter that focuses on motor management, specifically assessing the costs of motor repair versus replacement on a life cycle cost basis, given the energy consumption of a motor over its life. There's also support for variable frequency drives. So I wanted to bring that to your attention as a customer resource as well as a program resource. As I mentioned, I wanted to give honorable mention to our work both in the commercial as well as the industrial sector. Done quite extensive work looking at commercial boilers and boiler systems, and I recommend that you go to the CE website and download some of our initiative documents on commercial boiler systems and technologies, especially with respect to optimization of operations and control. Also looking at commercial whole buildings, integrating strategic energy management, operations and maintenance savings as well through commercial whole buildings management, which has really been enabled by a lot of communication and control technologies over the last several years. Finally, I wanted to just highlight a couple additional resources and references for your information. As I mentioned, there are several new and I think relevant to the industrial sector minimum codes and standards that are in process at the U.S. Department of Energy. The ones that I mentioned in this presentation can be further researched through the DOE link provided here. There's also a variety of voluntary specifications through the Energy Star program administered by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency. And the other resource I wanted to mention is the State Energy Efficiency Action Network, or C-Action. Their working group on industrial energy efficiency and combined heat and power has released 4 reports focusing specifically on industrial energy efficiency and in working with programs. So I recommend that for your future reading. And finally, I just really want to issue a call to action to get involved, and I'd be remiss not to encourage you to contact your local energy efficiency program, probably starting with your own utility, to understand what they offer and what their programs can support. If you're looking for a list, if you have multiple sites in multiple states, the CEE list of membership can be a good place to start, as well as our program summaries, which provide a topic-based list of CE members. For instance, if you're interested in pump programs or compressed air programs, we maintain a summary of all of our members that support those types of measures. Also encourage you to take a look at the EPA Energy Star for Industry program, which provides excellent support for energy management, including most recently treasure hunts. And finally, the U.S. Department of Energy's Advanced Manufacturing Office provides excellent support through their Better Buildings, Better Plants program and through their Superior Energy Performance program, the latter focusing again on energy management and leveraging ISO 50001. Just concluding with our contact information, obviously from what you've heard from Craig and myself today, our focus is on supporting programs that are run mainly by electric and gas utilities who then serve many of you through in the commercial, residential, and industrial sector. We're happy to respond to inquiries or questions as we're able. Thank you very much for your time today. We've really enjoyed it. Bob, I think we're back to you.
Yep. Thanks, Ted and Craig, for really an excellent presentation. And we're going to get to some of the questions from the audience here in just a moment. You can type more questions for today's presenters in the Ask a Question box on your screen. We'll get to as many of those as we can. And within a few days, this presentation will be available for on-demand viewing. We'll post the archive on the Plant Engineering website, and we'll send you an email message with a link connecting directly to it and to the related resources after it's ready. As a reminder, if you want to take the Learning Unit exam, use the Learning Unit Exam tab option at the top of your screen. That exam will open in a new window. You can complete the exam after the webcast. However, the link will break after the webcast signs off, and the exam will be posted on the Plant Engineering website with the on-demand version of today's webcast. We covered a lot of areas here, and I want to add one other bit of information from Plant Engineering's readers before we get into the specifics of some of the questions from the audience, and that is that we've been asking in our salary survey for the last several years how plant managers are incented in their bonus programs, because we found about 17% of all plant managers' bonus total compensation is bonuses and incentives, and only about 14% of plant managers receive a bonus based on energy management. But the good news is that's up from about 7% 3 or 4 years ago. So we are seeing more manufacturers understanding the value of not just putting in energy management programs, but also incenting their managers and their line workers to help them do a better job of managing energy throughout the facility. So that's just one more bit of encouragement in terms of the idea of energy management in manufacturing. So let's get on to some of the questions. And Ted, this starts with a kind of a basic one. You talked about the work that you do with utilities. Why should utilities want to get their customers to use less of their product in energy efficiency programs? That seems counterintuitive.
Thanks, Bob. It's a good question, and it's very basic and an important one, I think. And just as I mentioned, utilities have an obligation to serve, and the business environment that they work in enables them to work in an area or to provide service essentially without competition. We don't have multiple lines running across our streets and avenues to provide electricity and natural gas. So part of that regulated environment is to also provide energy efficiency and to regulate the investments and operating costs that utilities incur in providing that access and that sort of monopolistic business environment. So that is the reason that in many cases why energy efficiency programs are motivated. That said, there are a lot of program administrators and utilities that see the business sense in providing energy efficiency and are largely motivated by that in addition to regulatory requirements. They see that satisfied customers are good for shareholders and good for their business. In fact, there's some data out there that indicates just that those customers that participate in energy efficiency programs overall have a better opinion and are more highly satisfied with their utilities as a result.
Yeah, and I think one of the issues that we've heard a lot about from both the manufacturers and from the utilities is that cooperative relationship that the utilities want to foster is much less traumatic than attempting to go through the regulatory process of creating additional generators, additional capacity. If you can stretch the capacity you're already making throughout more of your customers, you don't have to go back to regulatory bodies and say we need to build a new generator, we need to build a new cogen plant someplace. You can work with the existing capacity you've already been licensed and approved for and have a much easier time in your community, so that when you do have to go back at some point down the road, you've at least got this long history to reference.
Absolutely. I mean, study after study shows that energy efficiency is indeed the least cost resource, and as a result, many utilities are required to get maximum resource from energy efficiency before looking at other traditional fuel types.
And one of these things that we hear a lot at trade events and in articles is that creating incentives for manufacturers to do off-peak manufacturing, to do some kinds of things that, particularly during the summer where you've got a lot of shedding of the energy use during peak times, if manufacturers take that process later in the day when the load is less, there's some real financial incentives that they can take advantage of.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Craig, let's go to the other side of this. Let's say you're in an area where a utility doesn't provide these kind of energy programs. How do you get access to energy efficiency measures?
Thanks, Bob. Typically, a utility will still know the appropriate organization to go to, but the ones offering the efficiency programs may or may not be your local utility. It could be a regional efficiency organization, some public power provider, some other broader organization, or even more localized. But typically, even if the utility does not administer these programs, they are aware of who does and can point you in the right direction.
Okay, very good. We'll get off utilities for just a second. We've got some more questions from the audience coming in. But Ted, let's go down to basics. Where's a good place to start with energy improvements in your organization?
That's a great question, and I think we could have a whole other webinar just on that. When I go back to some of the work that we did with strategic energy management and some of the minimum requirements to kind of get started with an energy efficiency program, and the lesson that comes, I think, time and time again is support from top management or your CEO in terms of providing not only support but the resources to move forward on energy efficiency. Is there someone who's going to be given responsibility to move forward, to put together a team, to be given the financial resources? I think that type of top-down support is key. Then you start saying, okay, can we get an audit, or is there a particular process or building where we know that it's energy intensive and there might be some energy savings there? Let's do an assessment to identify a queue or a pipeline of projects that we can start thinking about and moving towards an ultimate goal. So I think sort of the organizational component is pretty key because starting with a project or even a list of projects can be tough sledding if there isn't support from the top.
Yeah, I remember a story at a manufacturing facility we were at a few years ago where the plant manager went in and said, okay, I had a staff meeting and said, listen, I just replaced, and this was several years ago, so it's even moved past this kind of technology, but he said, I've replaced all the fluorescents in our plant with T8s. That's $70,000 worth of savings. That's 2 jobs. Now, where else can we find those kind of savings within the facility? And suddenly, rather than one person talking about one project that was top-down, he had 200 or 300 evangelists all looking throughout the facility, looking to save energy in large ways and small. And that kind of momentum changed the way the entire organization looked at energy management.
It's a great story.
Yeah. We have a question from Andy Lampera from PepsiCo. Are demand response programs, which we were just talking about a moment ago, primarily involved with load shedding during peak times, or do you see energy storage projects as well?
The demand response programs that we, specifically in the CE Annual Industry Report, are investigating are primarily load shedding or particular events designed to incentivize or encourage use during off-peak times. But CEE is looking into energy storage as well, and we're seeing more of that come on. I think, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely true. Actually, one of the Better Buildings Showcase projects that I mentioned through the Department of Energy highlights a elevator manufacturer in Middletown, Tennessee that worked with their local energy efficiency provider, which was the Tennessee Valley Authority, on a compressed air storage system. And part of that was to store compressed air and manufacture it or store it during the night and then use it during the day when there was a peak load. So it's not just it's a variety of forms of storage, and in this case, compressed air was how they were doing that. So I think we are seeing more and more of that, especially in capacity-constrained areas.
Yeah, I think we talked about compressed air there for just a second, and I think the tendency when we talk about energy is to talk about electrical, but there are so many areas within the facility where you have an opportunity to identify, and in fact, most of the plant managers I talk to and most of the industry experts I talk to indicate that compressed air is probably the biggest energy waster within the facility because it's kind of a silent killer of your budget rather than a more obvious one. If the lights go out, you know that there's an electrical problem. If your electric bill goes up, it may be a part of your electricity. It may be the energy you're spending running your compressed air system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we've definitely have seen that as different program administrators are comparing notes. I think particularly we're seeing industrial equipment, including compressors and compressed air systems, because of the electronics that are increasingly on board with those systems, they become more and more visible and easier to manage, I think, on behalf of operators and plant engineers. So I think we are going to be able to identify a lot more opportunities for savings because those systems are going to be a lot more self-reporting.
Very good. And we have a webcast for plant engineering coming up on June 2nd that's going to talk about the industrial Internet of Things. And this is certainly an area, energy monitoring is a very important area about that. So we'd encourage you guys to register for that webcast and come on back on June 2nd because that's going to be part of our discussion as well. Norm Novotny from Shellotron, are power factor control requirements becoming more stringent, and are there any major advances in this area?
It's a good question. It's a little out of scope for CEE because it tends to be regionally specific rather than having an opportunity for a national power factor perspective or initiative. We do look at power factor in specific areas where it's relevant. What comes top of mind right now is our initiative and specifications on compact fluorescent lighting. Power factor was a major consideration in that. Our tendency, and we really look to industry-accepted standards from the product manufacturers themselves. So when it comes to motors or variable frequency drives where there may be harmonic or power factor considerations, we really look to the industry to help us inform a position for energy efficiency programs.
Great. Doug Deaton from Mobrin Transport wanted you to go back over DSM. What does it stand for, and just talk a little bit more about that about that for just a second.
Sure. So DSM stands for Demand Side Management, and it encompasses two types of efficiency programs. So there's energy efficiency programs, which typically involve encouraging or incentivizing the installation of efficient technologies or processes into a facility. And then there are demand response programs, which focus on typically managing load and capacity during peak times and incentivizing electricity use off those peak hours. So demand side management encompasses both energy efficiency and demand response.
The only thing I would add to that too is one, you think, at least in electricity terms, for your demand, you're thinking of kW, and for energy efficiency, kWh. From a utility planner's perspective, from a power planner's perspective, they're really thinking about how much capacity from power production or procurement do they need to have online to meet their customers' needs. And when they look to demand-side management, it's trying to offset additional production and siting of plants or procurement of power on the customer side of the meter. And over time, I think the utility industry has discovered that that can be a deep and very plentiful resource. And that's why there's so much focus on demand-side management.
Very good. One other question from our audience. Can companies offering strategic energy management solutions be part of the CEE efficiency programs?
Well, someone offering a strategic energy management solution couldn't necessarily become a CEE member, as CEE members are program administrators specifically, but could certainly get involved with CEE's work. We routinely reach out to industry stakeholders and relevant organizations who are doing and developing new practices in the field to get their insight and help guide the work that is going on at CEE. Once a year, in the fall, we also have the CEE Industry Partners meeting where we bring organizations like that together to help drive forward consensus and new developments and opportunities in particular areas. That you probably speak to.
Yeah, I was going to say, we really rely on the providers of products and services to inform CEE's work. So if there is a comment or an interest in reviewing, particularly I think industry review is probably the biggest opportunity to provide input and participate for non-members in the CEE process. So encourage that individual to follow up with either Craig or myself, and we can work with them.
Very good. Got time for one last question, and this probably ties it up nicely for today's presentation, Ted. There's a lot of products that claim energy efficiency. It's like a lot of products claiming to be low fat. I mean, it's the same. You see that put out there. How do you know what's really going to work in your manufacturing plant?
That's a great question, and thanks for that. As CEE staff and working on behalf of energy efficiency programs, we do a lot of research, and we see a lot of claims for energy savings. Some of the things that we look for are industry-accepted test procedures or federal test procedures associated with codes and standards. Those are very important. We look for a source of data. Is there a way to comparatively show on an industry basis the relative energy efficiency using accepted test procedures? The acknowledgement and credibility of an organization like EPA or DOE or another credible national or international organization, I think, are also things to look at and look for. Those are certainly things that at CEE we look at before we even bring them to our committees for consideration in a program environment.
Very good. Well, I want to thank both Ted Jones and Craig Massey from CEE for their outstanding presentation today and a lot of great information out to our audience.